and welcome to episode 4 of RTO Doctor's 30 Days, 30 Tips. I'm Raylene Bartlett, the founding director of RTO Doctor, and today I'm going to talk to you very briefly, I promise it won't be another 20-minute video, on resumption planning. And it applies not just to those RTOs that have been in hibernation during the COVID pandemic, it also applies to RTOs that have made a whole variety of changes to their RTO operations during the same time. Excuse me. So one of the first tips that I would give you in relation to resuming your or undertaking your resumption planning is to first revisit your business plan. Make sure that your business plan is current and up to date, and maybe even for your own benefit, not for submission to ASQA by any means, but maybe for your own benefit, use of the financial viability risk assessment tool on the ASQA website may just help you in preparing to make sure that your resumption of operations is going to be financially viable. After all, you don't want to go to all the effort of making sure that you can operate again only to find that it's not financially viable and you have to go back into hibernation, if that's even possible. So first tip is to make sure that your business plan is up to date, and maybe get a copy of the financial viability risk assessment tool from the ASQA website and use that as a guide to whether or not something is going to work for you or not in a financially viable way. You don't have to submit it to ASQA, keep it for yourself, but it's a very good tool to use for that benefit. Now, resumption planning is also not just about hibernation, as we said before. It could just be that during COVID you continued delivery, but you had different ways of delivering your training and assessment. You may have had different target groups. You may have gone completely online. You may have done a blend of online and workplace training. There's all different delivery modes that changed. So resumption planning also takes into consideration that it might just actually be that you're resuming your previous training, delivery and assessment methods and returning to the previous target groups that you had before. Likewise, it could also be for those RTOs who are in hibernation. I strongly recommend that you take a good look at what you were delivering and assessing prior to COVID. Make sure that it is still suitable some 18 months later, if that's how long you've been in lockdown. One of the other things I thought about was the same locations. Perhaps you have to notify ASQA that you have new locations, or you had locations that had closed during the lockdown and you've managed to be able to recover those premises and open them again. So just contemplating how that might work and how you're going to use those locations to the best possible way, efficiently, cost-wise, time-wise, student comfort-wise, and trainer-wise as well. Are you going to keep all of the campuses that you had open prior to lockdown, or are you only going to keep some? And on what basis will you make those decisions? Is it because the international student market is not very good at the moment, so you might not open that regional campus again, and therefore you might keep all of your city campuses? Or it might be that you have a target group down south of I'm in Perth, so down south in Perth, and you would like to revisit that particular target group, and so you're delivering training and assessment there again. It may be that you've had to invest in new staff. Perhaps you've had to let some go at the time of the COVID pandemic, when it was at its worst and you went into hibernation. So it may be that you have to actually secure some more trainers and assessors to be able to deliver the courses that you delivered previously. Like I said earlier, if you're revisiting that business plan and the financial viability plan, being able to identify trainers and the salaries and contractors and all of those things along with your timetabling will also help you to determine how many staff you need in what particular areas. It can help you to manage your costs more effectively as well. It's also a good opportunity to make sure that any trainers and assessors who have remained with you during the COVID pandemic, if you weren't in a hibernation situation, it may be an opportunity for them to revisit their trainer and assessor profile, make sure that their competency, currency, skills, experience are all current. That they've undertaken sufficient professional development and they've aligned that to what they're going to be delivering and assessing, making sure that you've got verified copies of all of the certificates and training that they've undertaken as well. Have you had to update COEs, or do you need to update COEs, for example, for international students on a student visa because you've either been in hibernation, you went into provider default, or perhaps you have continued your training, but the students are now coming to the end of the maximum amount of theory that you can deliver, and there's only really practical left, and you're still in lockdown, and so you may need to extend some of those COEs and so forth. So it's really important to make sure that things like Prisms and ASQUANet are up to date with all of your information and all of the information about your students and their enrollments and certifications and so forth as well. Another thing to consider is, has there been any training package updates, and do you need to transition for any qualifications while your RTO's been in hibernation? If you haven't been in hibernation, it may be that you've just slowed down your operations during the COVID period. You haven't really had the time or the ability to be able to focus on those transition requirements. If you've been in hibernation, absolutely make up the use of that 21 days to try and make sure that your training and assessment is aligned to any training package transitions. Now, obviously, you've got 12 months or 18 months in some cases. I know that ASQA has been somewhat generous in their extensions of time in relation to transition requirements. So maybe have a look at the transition times on the ASQA website and see if you're fortunate enough to be one of those courses that you can depend on an 18-month transition, and that way you can just focus on what you need to do to get ready to deliver right now, as opposed to 12 months' time. It can be a work in progress, so to speak. It may be that you need to update your website. In fact, if you actually complied with the requirements for hibernation, you absolutely will have to update your website, because you had to have a big banner across it saying that you were not operating due to COVID. When you're updating your website, it's important to make sure that your website is consistent with your scope of registration, your training and assessment strategies, your policies and processes, and that everything just lines up. It could be that your policies and procedures, particularly those around refunds, fees and charges, course progress, attendance, all of those sorts of policies may need to be updated to reflect the new conditions for learning and assessment. If you went away in hibernation for a significant lockdown period, it might be that you have changed your approach to attendance as time has gone on. You've gone in and out of lockdown, and so you may need to adjust some of those policies and procedures to make sure that they are suitable for you moving forward once you resume training and assessment. Do your staff need new employment contracts? Do they need updating? Do you have new contractors? It's always a good idea to review your human resource contracts from time to time. You never know when they're putting you at risk, or when they're not performing to their best for you. The employment contract should also make sure that it covers the duties of each party, the legal responsibilities, and what happens as a consequence if those duties are not abided by. Another one is student support. Is there enough student support available in the RTO once you resume training and assessment? There is no specific ratio that ASQA gives for per student how many staff member, but but it needs to be sufficient and reasonable enough to ensure the well-being of the students on campus. Have you worked out your marketing? So while you're doing your business plan and your financial viability at the very beginning of this exercise, as I suggested earlier, you may want to revisit some of the marketing promotions that you've done in the past and see whether or not you can repurpose them, or whether or not you might need to recreate entirely new marketing campaigns to generate income and new students, whether they be onshore or offshore. Bearing in mind that until the borders open internationally, it's going to be very hard for any offshore students to come to Australia to study. Have you caught up on any outstanding validations that needed to be undertaken as part of your 5-year plan? Over an 18-month period that COVID-19 has been in our communities, there may be quite a few providers who have not necessarily been able to maintain the calendar process that they had identified as being their 5-year plan. So that's always a good one to catch up on as well. Have you thought about conducting an internal audit? You may have a compliance manager on site, which is great, or a training manager who can also complete an internal audit, but you must be able to give them the permissions and the authority to feel free in reporting any non-conformances or non-compliance with the standards and regulations and the Act. If they don't feel free to be able to report those things, then conducting an internal audit is just an entire waste of time, because all they're going to be doing is telling you what you want to hear as opposed to what you want to know. So if you are really keen to conduct an internal audit, you can always get someone within your own organisation to do it for you if they have the skills and knowledge, perhaps even the qualifications. However, you might also consider engaging a compliance consultant to assist you with conducting an internal audit, letting you know where your weakest points are, your pain points, and how you might be able to rectify them before you resume training and assessment once again. Don't forget too that if you went into hibernation, at the time that you signed the declaration, you signed that you are 100% compliant. So given that you're notifying ASQA that within 21 days, for example, you intend on commencing operations again, there's going to be a point in time where ASQA does come back and they challenge whether or not you did what you say you were going to do. So it's probably important to make sure that the internal audit and all of the validations and any work that you've done on improving the RTO during that hibernation process has led to continuous improvements that have been documented, actioned, and most likely operating in your RTO as we speak. In the last couple of things that I have for you, don't forget about infection control and social distancing when you're figuring out the financial viability and whether or not you're going to be able to service the clients in the classroom based on infection control and social distancing requirements. So if your class typically had 30 students, but now you have certain space that you must keep apart as part of a COVID plan, then you need to be able to make sure that you're able to deliver your programs despite that. Maybe do some financial modelling around how many students minimum you need to have in the RTO at any particular one time before it starts to genuinely impact the RTO negatively. And finally, if you've been in hibernation, the last tip of today is to remind you that you must notify ASQA no less than 21 days prior to you resuming your training and assessment. So at the time while you're still in lockdown or just not opening your business, you need to let ASQA know with a minimum of 21 days notice. A lot of people seem to be setting themselves up for a very big failure in that particular area. I've seen a number of providers who are delivering in breach of the fact that the ASQA table clearly states that they are currently delivering, or shouldn't be. You get the idea. That's about all I have for you today. Some of those topics we're going to go into in more detail as the days go by. This is the 30 days, 30 tips, and so there will be 30 days worth of tips. They're all free. You can do with them what you like, and they are all conducted on the RTO Doctor Facebook page live, and then they are distributed amongst all of its other social media accounts. If you have any questions in relation to resumption planning, please shoot them through, or even just contact ASQA, who has got a significant amount of information in relation to resumption planning available in their website. And that's about it. So thank you for watching. Tomorrow night we're going to talk about website maintenance, I think. Yes, website compliance tomorrow. And I'll be giving away one free website audit for one qualification tomorrow at the end of the call. I'll be giving it away to the person who has contributed and participated the most so far. So thank you for listening. I hope you're going to be the lucky person to take advantage of that free website audit. It really will be genuinely free, so I hope you do take advantage of it. Take care for now and have a lovely evening, and I'll see you tomorrow for tomorrow's live video. Bye for now.